As of the time of this recording, there are 5 days remaining for the Linear banner, which means Phase 2 is just around the corner with a Tartaglia and Zhongli rerun. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video and another installment of the series of Should You Pull for X and Y character. And this time around, we'll be taking a look at the characters coming up in Phase 2 of version 4.0, which are Childe, also known as Tartaglia, the 11th Fatui Harbinger, and the Geo Archon himself, Zhongli. So let's start off with Tartaglia. So Tartaglia is a 5-star bow user released back in version 1.1. To sum up, his kit is basically an on-field hydro driver with a very strong burst. And if you don't know what I mean by an on-field hydro driver, it means he basically applies a lot of his respective element. His elemental skill allows him to enter a melee stance, which has its own separate damage multipliers, which is completely separate from his normal attacks. While it does feel fun to use and it looks really cool, the downside is that the cooldown of his skill becomes absurdly long the longer you stay in it, which is one of Tartaglia's downsides. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you can stay in his melee stance for a maximum of 30 seconds, of which when you deactivate it, it will have a cooldown of 45, which that's pretty long. And I think this is probably one of the downsides for Tartaglia, and what really maybe turns people off from playing him at all is that you have to learn a little bit of cooldown management. You cannot stay too long in his melee stance, otherwise you won't even get the chance to really play, I would argue, the best part of him. And the best way for me to describe his elemental skill is basically he has a killjoy elemental skill. So if you don't know what the term killjoy means, it refers to that person who is basically like the quote-unquote you must be really fun at party person. Basically, when you enter Tartaglia's melee stance, if you master his cooldown management, so like you play his melee stance for a little bit, and then when it starts getting fun, that's when you know you should swap off and turn off his elemental skill, and thus that's why I like to dub it as the killjoy elemental skill. He also has a separate Riptide mechanic which is unique to him, where he applies a status effect from different parts of his kit. One of it is from his bow's charge attack, the second one would be his Riptide burst, aka the bow burst, and once you unlock Ascension 4, any crit in the melee stance will also apply the Riptide status effect. To sum things up, basically Riptide allows him to do big hydro application, which lets him be as good as a driver as he is today. And I feel like this is related to the ICD mechanic. So ICD stands for internal cooldown. It refers to how often elements can be applied on enemies. And I believe the rules of ICD states that an element can be applied every 3 hits or every 2.5 seconds. I don't really know how this works, but I assume Riptide is probably counted as its own thing. That's why he can apply a lot of hydro. And the best part about Riptide is that Tartaglia really shines if you're going against a lot of mobs and they're grouped up to each other, because I believe he benefits of this thing called a quadratic scaling. Essentially, the way Riptide works is that you apply the Riptide effect on an enemy, and then if you were to do the same thing that reapplies it again, it's going to cause like a Riptide slash or something like that, or Riptide flash, basically like a Riptide kind of mini AoE hydro explosion thing. And this thing can actually trigger, I don't think it actually triggers other Riptides, but basically imagine if you have a bunch of Hilichurls in the same room, like just right next to each other. So you trigger that Riptide on one guy, and then the damage from that one guy, that Riptide will hit the other 4 people. And then you do the same thing to the other 4 Hilichurls, the damage is just going to scale up and higher and even higher, and you just watch fireworks happen. And I think this is why people say Tartaglia is really fun to play, because the effects and the feeling of playing him against multiple mobs is so satisfying. In fact, like I've been running his team quite a lot recently, aka his best team that he has right now is the Childe International, which comprises of Bennett, Kazuha, and Shengling. And the point of Tartaglia in this team is to basically allow Shengling to burst really often, and given how his elemental application works, when you enter his melee stance, it allows Kazuha to do a technique called a double swirl. And it's really nice, it's really fun. And I think the best part about it is like, not only can you let Shengling's burst vape, Shengling's pyro application also allows Tartaglia to vape, and the numbers just go brrrr, like things just die. There's a reason why this is one of the best meta teams and why it is considered like very strong speedrun team among the speedrunners. But there is a caveat with Tartaglia, is that his closest comparison is another Hydro character, aka Kamisato Ayato. And I would say that due to the cooldown management and due to the way that you have to run Childe International, I would say he has a higher skill ceiling compared to someone like Ayato, which I feel like Ayato doesn't have the same degree of effectiveness. However, he is the more casual version of Tartaglia. Because the one thing I don't actually like about Tartaglia is that his freaking elemental skill did not need that super long cooldown mechanic. I felt like what they should have done is they should have did the same thing as they did with Ayato. Make it so that Tartaglia's skill, you can only stay in his melee stance for a certain duration until it just deactivates itself, rather than having to worry about cooldown management. And I think this is why a lot of casual players prefer someone like Ayato. Even though Tartaglia is better in hydro application, Ayato it's just much easier to play. Like, that's what it really comes down to. So that kind of makes Tartaglia have like a very big skill ceiling. So what kind of prestige or right do I have to say about this? Interestingly, literally the day before I recorded this video, like the footage will show right now, I just double crowned my Tartaglia and I brought him to level 90 literally yesterday. Like, I bought Battle Pass for the Wolfang and I was like, you know what? I like Tartaglia. I'm just gonna double crown him. Once I get the third crown, maybe from the Fountain of Lucine, I'll triple crown him. Because why not? He's just really fun, and I think I'll be looking forward to running him in the future runs in Abyss. So now that we're done with the first character, hopefully this information helps you decide on whether you want to pull for him or not. So we'll move on to the second one, aka the one and only Geo Archon, the guy who basically invented money but has no sense of it, Rex Lapis himself, Zhongli. So obviously Zhongli is Geo Archon. He is well known for having the strongest shield in the game. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think his elemental skill basically decreases enemies' resistance to every single element, I believe, for like 20% as long as they are near you and you have your shield activated. While this may sound cool, right, he doesn't really offer anything more than that aside from a strong shield and a resistance shred. So people always talk about how Zhongli as a flex slot in a team, in like meta-wise, his presence is technically a damage loss because you have better options to put. But I would say this comes with its caveat, because not all of us are meta chasers. Not all of us play Abyss 24/7 and we're not speedrunners. Most of us just want to play the game and have a good time. And that's why I feel like his best selling point, aside from his English dub,
I will have order,
is his strong shield. I've been playing Zhongli for quite a while, and I remember I think last year we had that Hoyo Lab thing where you could basically watch like a reel of what things that you've done, how much Mora you've collected, how much Primo Gems you farm. And I think one of it was that the characters that you run domain the most with. And surprisingly, I thought I ran Ayaka because I really like Ayaka, but instead it was Zhongli. And then I realized, you know what, that's because I'm too lazy to play. So that's why I feel like Zhongli's strong shield is his best point, because it allows you to play in a very comfortable manner. It allows you to do this thing called an off-brain gameplay, where you don't actually have to try to dodge enemies. You can just tank everything and just do whatever you want. And I think it's really nice. And there are certain situations or certain characters where a shield is utmost necessary to play certain characters like Yoimiya, who suffers from a big damage loss when they get interrupted mid-attack. You know, other strong points that Zhongli would have before his buff back in 1.5, because I got Zhongli back in 1.1, is that he's very good at breaking rocks. So if you don't feel like using a Claymore character and swinging like 20 times to break 5 rocks, just use Zhongli, hold E, everything just breaks. It's really just that simple. Or maybe you want to go for Zhongli, you can probably run like a burst support Zhongli build, where it's just fun. There's just something satisfying about him just dropping the meteor, or like the Japanese dub would be like Tendo Bongsho, and you just go and everything just blows up and everyone gets petrified and you watch a wow 100k damage, crazy dude. Or maybe the English dub would be like, I will have order, or some shit like that. That's just really cool. There's something about his burst, despite being a damage loss, there's just something satisfying about watching it drop and just watching the effects go. Or maybe you might enjoy a different kind of Zhongli, because there are some outliers or some people out there that play this playstyle called the Pike Zhongli. Pike stands for Crescent Pike, which if you guys don't know is one of the Mondstadt craftables. Basically, it allows Zhongli to play like a physical DPS build. And I've seen some videos where people went against the Setek Vinut back in the, I think it was the 3.4 or 3.5 of this, where he had like absurdly high resistance. And there was this one video that I saw where someone they were running a physical Zhongli and they managed to 36 star, and it's actually insane. Like there's something about his normal attack string, because I believe his normal attack strings are very, very fast. And I think that's what allows him to kind of run this alternate physical build. So depending on what you like, you may like Pike Zhongli. I haven't really gotten into it. I've tried it a bit, but I think my artifacts are not strong enough to do big damage. But otherwise, I think it's just up to your own taste, I guess. So overall, I hope all this information kind of helps you. This is just more of an opinionated stance, or at least from my perspective as someone who does have both characters. And another extra that I would like to add before we end this video is that Femine, the other new 4-star character in version 4.0, will be rated up in this patch. So maybe you might not pull for specifically for Tartaglia or Zhongli, but maybe you want to go for Femine, but you just have to make some considerations. I'm not really going to talk about the consolations because I'm gonna be real, as much as consolations on Tartaglia doesn't actually change too much of his gameplay. Like, he doesn't benefit that much of it. And Zhongli, I think at best you probably want to go for C2 or C3 just to get that shield on bursting, but otherwise these characters are very much functional at Consolation 0. So I hope this video is helpful for you guys, depending on what you like, depending on what you're into, and I wish you the best of luck in your upcoming summons. Once again, the usual stuff. If you find this video helpful or if you enjoyed it, leave it a like, subscribe for more content. I'm gonna try to do a schedule where I upload maybe 1 video per week because I have a lot of things that I want to do. I do have a video coming up where I'm going to do playtesting on the new Battle Pass weapon, the Wolffang. So I guess you can look forward to that. And then maybe like a Lynette review from like an honest low spender perspective now that I've been playing Lynette for like 2 weeks. Thank you for stopping by. I wish you the best of luck in whatever polls you want to do next week, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.